purpose of this legislative forum is to provide an opportunity for the public to express concerns and to offer input about what they would like the legislature to address in the 2017 legislative session that began on February 7th. So Reverend Dr. Glenn Connor is going to come up and open us in prayer, followed by the posting of the colors.
Would you pray with me, please? Oh God, we pause for a moment, and we're humbled by the beauty of this good day. It's been a reminder of your light which shines in our lives. We are grateful for your love and care which we see in so many ways each and every day. As we gather here tonight, remind us of your presence with us. Remind us that though we are all different, there are common dreams and desires which can unite us as brothers and sisters. We all want places where we can live in peace, opportunities where we can work and give our best, schools where our children may learn in safety, and neighbors who are willing to join with us seeking for the best life we can have. We pray for our leaders, for our national leaders, our state leaders, our city leaders, and especially tonight for this legislative delegation. Bless them with stamina and toughness and the integrity to fight for what is right and honorable in your sight. Grant our leaders a desire to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with you. Protect them from losing their moral compass which you have given, and help our leaders to work together so that all may be blessed by living in our communities. We humbly ask these petitions and offer you our praise in the name of Christ, our King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Connor. The posting of the colors will be done by Boy Scout Troop 15, Evan Ellison, Aaron Hollenbach, Dustin Prestige, accompanied by their Scoutmaster, Art Hargrove. As a special note, Troop 15 is the oldest continuing active Boy Scout troop in Alabama, chartered in 1935. Their original charter was signed by President Franklin Roosevelt. Troop 15's first committee chairman was Senator John Sparkman. So could I ask you to stand for presentation of the colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to introduce our legislators tonight, and I'll start in the middle of myself. I'm State Senator Steve Livingston, represent District 8, which is DeKalb, Madison, and Jackson County, and I'll let Representative Patterson start on the far end.
Representative Jim Patterson, I represent District 21, which starts at Drake Avenue, everything from the Parkway to the mountain, and goes up through what I call that the Randolph area. I have Blossomwood, I have 5 Points, have Chapman, and go over the mountain, and I have Moore's Mill. The Moore's Mill area, the Chase area, and then I have all of Meridianville and half of Hazel Green all the way to the state line. My district's long and narrow, and I'm one of the few districts in the state that have urban, suburban, and rural, so I represent a little bit of everything.
State Senator Clay Schofield represents Senate District 9, all of Marshall County, Northern Blount County, Southwest Madison County, Southeast Madison County, Southwest DeKalb, New Hope, Owens Crossroads, and a good portion of South Huntsville.
Phil Williams, House District 6. It begins at Bridge Street, Research Park, a little bit of Monrovia, Harvest, Tony, up to Ardmore, state line, and across to Limestone County.
Arthur Orr, in Madison County, I'm in the state senate. I have the Arsenal and west of the Arsenal, the airport, going on to the Limestone County line, and then south of Madison Boulevard. In Limestone, have southeast Limestone, and then all of Morgan County.
State Representative Anthony Daniels, District 53, southwest Huntsville, Martin Road South, north to Oakwood Avenue, northwest to Old Monrovia 255, and half of downtown.
Good evening. Bill Holtzclaw, Senate District 2. I represent parts of Limestone County as well as the western portions of Madison County. Essentially from Highway 53, Jordan Lane would kind of be the eastern boundary, the southern boundary. I never drop below 565, so it's all north of that until you get to the Arsenal, have a good piece of the Arsenal. The western boundary is essentially running up County Line Road till you get to Browns Ferry, and then I cross over into Limestone County. Northern boundary is Ready Section Road as it crosses the northern part there of the of Madison County.
State Representative Howard Sandiford. I have House District 20. That's after redistricting everything south of Drake, pretty much east of Memorial Parkway, going out to Hampton Cove, Taylor Road, and all that area.
Good evening. My name is Laura Hall. I represent House District 19. I have north on Jordan Lane up to Harvest, and east boundaries would be Alabama A&M University, little of New Market, and then on the west side would be Oakwood University.
My name's Mike Ball. I represent District 10. My western boundary is the Limestone County line. I have the southern half of the city of Madison, all the way down to the Tennessee River. We've got the Redstone Arsenal, and South Huntsville, west of the Parkway, and also the Ditto Landing, and then I have Green Mountain too.
Not present with us tonight is Speaker Mac McCutcheon. He is in Montgomery working. Senator Paul Sanford is also in Montgomery today, and Senator Melton is not available, not with us tonight also. So would remind you that we have a house full of folks, and we've got a 3-minute time limit, which Senator Holtzclaw is going to be going on. So as a courtesy to all present, appreciate if you turn your cell phones, your electronic devices on silent. We'd ask that you keep your matters to state issues, state, county, local issues, not federal issues, and so that everyone can speak. If we have multiple speakers from the same group, let's try to be concise with that. And when you're called to speak on, please go to one of the 3 microphones. There's one on either side, in the middle, and there, and then in the back, Becky has a portable microphone that we can get to you. We ask the comments be limited to 3 minutes, and legislators may comment on issue if they like. However, the delegation will not be polled on specific issues. We respect your time and conclude the forum promptly at 9 p.m. And if you haven't signed up to speak, there'll be a sheet down on the podium in front of us. Otherwise, if I could kind of stage the first 3 speakers, and it would be Brian Bennett, Aaron Mize, and Stephanie Strong at one of the 3 microphones or the portable. We'll begin. Brian Bennett.
Mr. Chairman.
And if I can, Mr.
I want to apologize. I called Mike Ball. I didn't know. I thought he was going to be cheering tonight. But we would kind of rotate between the House and Senate. But Richie Horton called me today, and he's got a Gurley team and a New Hope team playing at Jacksonville. And he called me and said he regretted he couldn't be here, but he's with his some of his district people down in Jacksonville tonight at the regional tournament with Gurley and New Hope High School.
Thank you.
And briefly, for those that aren't aware, the timer, how it works, and all I do is turn it on and off. When I hit run, you see the green light will come on the wall there. That's going to run down when it'll turn yellow at the 2-minute mark, and then it'll turn, I think it's 2-minute mark anyway, and then it'll turn red and begin to blink. And you'll kind of, when it's yellow, we're kind of trying to get you to wrap up. We're not trying to rush anything. What we are trying to do is make sure we can hear from everybody that's signed up. What I would encourage you, if you get kind of long, is to target kind of the legislator or your legislator and follow up with them so that your information is not lost, and they can certainly share it with the rest of the body. Mr. Chairman, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Holtzclaw. Mr. Bennett?
All right, thank you very much. I'm probably a little bit unique in here in that I'm asking you all to raise my taxes. You don't hear that a lot. But as each of you all know, our personal property taxes in Alabama are the lowest in all 50 states. You all may not know that. If you doubled the taxes on my house, doubled them, we would still be the lowest in all 50 states. Mississippi being the next lowest, and they also get revenue from gambling. Now, I'm not saying only increase the taxes on my house. We have to look at timberland. We have to look at the tax exclusions that have been given corporations, et cetera. And I'm in hopes that with Speaker McCutcheon's look at all of our expenditures and all of our revenue, that hopefully something good will come out. In the Air Force, we teach our young officers and airmen integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. That's a tough decision for you to vote on anything that's going to raise our taxes. But we are hurting in Alabama, and you do not want to have the legacy that you presided over the decay of so many functions and so many services and the quality of life on our people. And so I ask you to please look real hard. I'll give you one quick example. I pay $600 a year for my homeowner association dues in Mount Carmel. $600 a year. Takes care of a couple swimming pools, a couple tennis courts, cuts the grass in the common areas, and plants flowers. I pay $668 to the state of Alabama for everything else it gives me. Now, there's something wrong in that kind of equation. Can you raise the taxes on my house 10% and I pay another $68 a year on my house? 4 bedrooms, 3 bath on a lake. I can afford it, and so can folks in my kinds of houses. I pay taxes for some other people on some of their houses who cannot. And at $127 or $150, if their taxes went up by $12 a year or $15 a year, that's doable. Please take a look at our personal property taxes. We've got a lot of hungry children sitting around the dinner table, and there's not much food on the table. Please, we need to increase revenue in the state of Alabama. Thank you very much.
Ms. Mize.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Erin Mize, and I actually live in Hartselle, but I work in Huntsville, right down the road here. More importantly, I delivered all 3 of my children here in Huntsville, which for me meant a 45-minute commute while I was in labor. Hartselle Medical Center closed 5 years ago. Shortly thereafter, Parkway and Decatur General merged into the Huntsville Hospital System. Now the residents of Morgan County, the 9th most populated in the state, have just 1 hospital with labor and delivery. The fact is, this is happening all across our state. Currently, women in 38 of our 67 counties do not have a hospital with obstetrical services. In fact, Alabama has the fewest number of OBGYNs and nurse midwives of any state in the country. And we are the only state with 0 out-of-hospital birth attendants. It is no coincidence that our birth statistics are so abysmal. We have some of the highest rates of premature birth in the country. The March of Dimes has graded us as an F. Our cesarean section rate is 36.5%. Best evidence supports a rate of 10 to 15%. In fact, many women in these rural counties go ahead and schedule a C-section so that they don't have to drive an hour or an hour and a half in labor. Whether it's because there's no alternative or they simply choose to, ADPH estimates that as many as 300 women every year in the state of Alabama give birth in their homes. Of course, they do so unassisted. If a certified professional midwife were present, she could be charged with a crime, a Class C misdemeanor, under existing laws. The Childbirth Freedom Act will change this. It creates a state board of midwifery, to license and regulate certified professional midwives in the state of Alabama. This will align us with 31 other states that do the same thing. In fact, more importantly, it will give us access to prenatal and labor and delivery care that women in every other state in this country have access to. I'm a representative of the Alabama Birth Coalition, and I can assure you that ABC has done the work necessary to produce a strong, fair bill that addresses the professional concerns of stakeholders and meets the immediate needs of consumers. We also stand right here in the middle with the people of the state, with the mothers and babies who need this care, with the majority, not the special interest groups or professional organizations, but with the people. Please support the Childbirth Freedom Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mize.
Senator,
Yes,
may I
ma'am.
ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
At the last year, there was a hearing, and at the end of the hearing, there was an agreement that the groups that were having issues or concerns would be meeting to, so is this bill that's being introduced now,
It is a result. Thank you,
Oh, all of
Representative Hall.
those-
I appreciate that question.
all of the
Yes.
issues have been dealt with?
Yes, ma'am. Any group that is willing to come to ABC respectfully, we have addressed issues and concerns with, including ADPH, the nurse midwives, the nursing board. We've met with Medicaid Commissioner Azar, and we've requested several times to meet with MASSA. We've also met, or rather I should say, created a midwifery advisory council within ABC to address the professional concerns of midwives as well. So you can see that we've really spent a lot of time in the interim between sessions to produce a really strong piece of legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Stephanie Strong.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Strong. I am a registered voter in District 5. I am also a small business owner, and my question is around just thinking about the 25,400 Huntsville through Florence residents who have enrolled in the Affordable Care Act. And my question to you, if the Affordable Care Act is repealed or replaced, what specifically are you going to do to ensure that these 25,400 residents right here in our area are not affected and are without health care? And what influence will you use to make sure that if the Affordable Care Act is repealed or replaced, that we will not be without health insurance, small businesses will not be heavily taxed, people with pre-existing conditions will be covered, and seniors who feel threatened that Medicare assistance will not be available. My question to you is, how will you use your influence to make sure that the Affordable Care Act is not replaced or repealed, and if so, how will we be covered? How will we have the assurance that we will be covered?
Federal issue.
Thank you very much. But Lawrence Suffrant, Daniel Worley, and Helen Worley next. I may not have the names correct there. David, sorry. Excuse me.
All right, good evening. My name is Lawrence Suffrant. I am from Faith in Alabama, Faith in Action, Alabama, grassroots, multi-racial, faith-based community organization group that crosses denominational faith lines and racial lines. I have a quote from Congressman Ted Lieu, U.S. Representative 33 District, talks about how America's broken criminal justice system goes against the core of our values. We cannot both be a nation that believes in freedom and equal justice under the law, yet at the same time locks up thousands of people solely because they cannot afford bail. We cannot both be a nation that believes in the principle of innocent until proven guilty, yet incarcerate over 450,000 Americans who have not been convicted of a crime. Throughout the nation, those with money can buy their freedom while poor defendants stay behind bars awaiting trial. Further horrifying, many people decide to plead guilty purely to get out of jail because they cannot afford bail. America should not be a country where freedom is based on income. We are better than this. So my question is pertaining to bail reform. What plan do you have in place to ensure that bail laws are equitable across economic lines and that every county in Alabama reduces the number of poor people who are serving extensive low-level crime sentences solely because they are too poor to afford bail? Thank you.
Ms. Worley?
I'm not going to be very popular on this, but I think it's a very serious and deadly thing going on, not only in our community, our state, but in our whole nation. I drive the roads since I was a kid with my parents, and now myself as a driver. Social media, technology is increasing the death rates on our road. It's not just faster speed limits. I would say 3 out of 5 cars I pass on any given day, they are strolling their social media, or they have a tablet in front of them, holding it on the steering wheel, down in their lap, and a lot of people are guilty. I don't own it. I'm here talking about it. I'm a driver. My children are drivers, and now my grandchildren. Something needs to be done. I highly suggest looking at it like a DUI. Put some charges in front of the use of a tablet and save lives. They're not only young people, my age, middle age, school teachers. Nobody's in that big of a hurry that just at the turn of the century we didn't have this available. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have it. We are a city of technology, but we do need to strive to save lives. And I think there's an easy fix. I really do. And it's not just saying put it down, but you are going to have to put a fine on it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It certainly is an issue. Cindy Branham, Jacqueline Snipe, and Marcus Singleton. Pardon?
Next. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Cindy Branham. First want to congratulate Representatives McCutcheon and Daniel for their election to positions of leadership. We're very proud of you in North Alabama. My topic is going to take off on Brian Bennett's just a little bit because I'm here to urge you to look at your social and your fiscal responsibilities. Socially, our legislature has passed a lot of bills that have ended up in courts, cost us a lot of money. Here's $325,000 until this one ended not long ago. And this has been the pattern, unfortunately, since maybe 2011. So I'm urging you to get off the social stuff, get on the fiscal stuff, because that's critical to us. Our quality of life is going downhill. People are dying. People are losing things that middle-class people should never lose in this country. We have a revenue problem. We have a serious revenue problem. And not addressing the fact that there just isn't enough money coming in, you cannot cut more. You can't cut your way out of a budget crisis. Not where we are now. We know that. There's a saying that nobody likes change. Well, nobody likes change but a baby with a dirty diaper. But even they fight it, right? they fight that tooth and nail till they get that diaper changed, and then they're happy because then their roads don't have potholes. Then they can get health care. Then their hospitals don't close down. Just so many things. Their water's clean. They can drink it without getting sick. I think that, you know, as representatives to all of us, I think it's really important that you consider all of us and have the courage to do the hard work, to do the right things. Thank you.
Jacqueline?
Yes, greetings, and to the Madison County Legislative Team. I know you all are quite supportive of Global Ties Alabama. One of my board members just said, "Are you here to do a resistance presentation?" I said, absolutely not. This is more informational. Most of you know that Global Ties Alabama was formerly the International Services Council of Alabama. We started in 1965, and we're a partner with the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Congress in bringing international visitors, emerging leaders to this state. I'm glad to hear Ms. Branham and Mr. Bennett talk about the monies that are needed in our state. We are one of those nonprofits that actually bring money to this state. We don't receive it personally, but the economic development impact on our state because of these visitors last year brought in $500,000. And we are hopeful that in addition to the money, the opportunity to increase peace and understanding across this world is what we accomplish, what you help us to accomplish. And as I look around this room, there are so many of you who volunteer with our organization as citizen diplomats. Citizen diplomats are those individuals who exercise their right and responsibility to impact the foreign relations of our nation, both at one handshake, one hug at a time, and we're very thankful for that. This is also an opportunity to share with you that we work very closely with our educational institutions, K through university. We have 3 team members, and we do this work throughout the state. We would not be able to do it without our interns. We have interns locally. We have programs on college campuses throughout the state. We also host youth programs where we bring in high school students from other countries, because investing in the leaders of and the emerging leaders of other countries will help to increase the peace and understanding as our leaders grow. And so we have our Central American youth, about 30 youth who come here every year, and we're able to also have reverse exchanges where we send 4 to 5 Alabama youth to Central America. So we know that we are having a very strong impact. So we're just thankful for the opportunity, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank the legislative team for supporting Global Ties Alabama. Right across the street is the Humphreys Rogers House. It's been a building that was first not inhabited. We now have been there for almost 4 years, and we are transforming it into an international conference center. Could not do it without your help, and we just appreciate the opportunity to come this evening and publicly thank you for the support that you give us programmatically and otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Singleton.
My name is Marcus Singleton, and I am a clergy leader for Faith in Action Alabama. We are a faith-based organization that goal is to honor God by achieving systemic change through faith-based community organizing and to create pathways for opportunity for all Alabamians. My question tonight, or focus tonight, is around sentencing reform. And I just want to say, as a person of faith, a citizen, a United Methodist minister, I believe that all human beings, which includes those who have been incarcerated and who are currently in prison, have the capacity for and need for transformation, rehabilitation, second chances, forgiveness, and hope for the betterment of their lives. According to the Prison Policy Initiative org, the United States incarcerates about 698 people per 100,000 people. The state of Alabama incarceration rate is higher than the national average. The state of Alabama incarcerates 987,000 people per 98,000 people per 100,000 people, which makes Alabama State's prisons at 190% capacity. The conditions in the prisons are deplorable. The state of Alabama is failing to rehab and reform or rehabilitate and reform its prisoners, resulting in unconstitutional treatment of Alabama inmates. And yet, according to the Alabama Political Reporter, the Senate version of the bill authorizing Alabama Prison the Alabama Prison Transformation Initiative will be considered by the Senate Judiciary coming up on March 1st. And this plan would authorize the $800 million bond to construct 3 new 4,000-bed men's prisons and a new women's prisons. And we know that rehabilitation is the key. We know that recidivism cannot happen without rehabilitation. And I'm sure as people of goodwill that you would agree that we would rather have rehabilitated people than allowing people to remain in prisons for low-level crimes to become more expert at criminals, because we know that if there's not rehabilitation happening within our prison systems, we know what happens. We know that we learn skills that aren't going to do our communities well. So what I'm asking, or what I want to know from the senators here today, and I would like a response. Nobody else asked for a response. I'm just bold enough to ask for a response. I'm just going to ask for a response for the senators that are here tonight. Will you oppose the Senate version of the prison building bill authorizing an $800 million bond to the Alabama Prison Transformation Act or Initiative? I still have time, so.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Singleton. Don't know what the bill looks like. Does it transform? So
I didn't hear you, sir.
We really don't know what the bill looks like, as it'll be moving throughout time it gets there. So it's hard to say yay or nay upon a bill that as it goes through the process.
Right, but
it may be something entirely different when it comes out on the back end.
The word is that it's going to be the same thing that Governor Bentley supported. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Thank you, and sir, thank you for your comments. And again, it was annotated in the opening. This has been a tradition of this legislative delegation for, well, I think Senator Orr, you're the graybeard of the bunch in terms of, and Howard. And graybeard's an endearing term from my time in the military. That means they've got more time. I get a little salt and pepper, but they got more. But they are the graybeards. This has been a tradition of this legislative delegation to hold these. And for interaction with the public. But it's one of the fundamental pieces has not been to, yay, are you going to vote for SB this, or no, are you going to vote for House Bill that? Because it's an unfair, I would tell you, I cannot support a piece of legislation that I've not seen. That bill may have been introduced, but I don't sit on that Judiciary Committee. I will tell you that bill will be amended in the Judiciary Committee that it will come out of, okay? So if I tell you I'm going to support it and it's amended in the committee process on Wednesday, I may withdraw my support. I may give it to my support. I would tell you I opposed it last year. I opposed it on the basis that I'm not going to borrow $800 million that's going to take 30 years to pay back. I have a 2-year-old grandson. He will be 32 years old when the prisons that we're going to build are paid off. Sir, I would submit to you there are far better ways to handle our prison problem in Alabama.
I agree.
But we need to move along with our program, and I thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. And just as I take my seat, as we say,
let's talk.
Next up, Steve Schmidt, Andrea McManus, and Sharon Willis, please. Sharon Willis.
Steve Schmidt.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, sir.
Schmidt, Andrea McManus. Andrea?
And I'm holding him to his time really tight.
Sharon.
I'll take it. All right, you're in charge of him.
Good evening. I'm retired Major General Steve Schmidt from the Air Force. I retired in 2014, live here in Huntsville, and I provided you all a paper proposing a graduated property tax exemption for disabled veterans in Alabama. The highlights are 45% of Alabama veterans are over the age of 65. 8.6% of Alabama veterans' incomes were below the poverty level in 2014, but few qualified for tax exemptions because Alabama does not have a graduated property tax deduction or exemption. although a number of other states around the nation do have them. My recommendation is to revise Alabama's legislation to allow graduated property tax for disabled veterans based on their degree of disability, not on age and not on income, so they can better afford homes and live more stable civilian lives in our community. Under current state law, an exemption is provided from property taxes on a home for any person who has a total disability, or being 65 years or older if they have a net annual income of only $12,000 or less. 45% of Alabama veterans were over 65 years old in 2014, but they were not eligible for a principal residence exemption unless their net annual income was $12,000 or less. Most disabled veterans are not 100% disabled, and therefore they do not qualify for property tax exemptions in Alabama, even though they may be multiple amputees and they may be only 90% disabled, for example, and that's not enough to qualify for an exemption. Those who do qualify are often in extreme need and can't afford a home. Nationwide, more than half of the states in the U.S. offer some form of exemption to lessen the financial strain on disabled veterans. And I'll just sum it up here. In Alabama, there were 91,726 veterans receiving VA disability compensation in 2015. And to better assist them, as an example, Texas provides a graduated property tax exemption that's determined by the percentage of service-connected disability as determined by the VA. This exemption is mandatory in Texas and applies to all taxes levied by a taxing authority in the state of Texas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McManus,
I'm Sharon Willis. I'm not sure where Ms. McManus is.
you stand right behind you.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going in the middle.
It's okay. Hi. I'd just like to comment that our esteemed state superintendent of education has advised our esteemed governor to zero out the Alabama Science in Motion funds. If you're not familiar with that, that's a partnership between universities all over the state. In Huntsville, it's A&M and UAH, and they provide science lab kits for schools so that chemistry teachers, physics teachers, biology teachers can give labs to their students to reinforce their lesson. In North Alabama, which prides itself on science and technology, we can't let this happen. Students need this. Novice teachers who don't have someone else that's been teaching the same thing in their school. For example, in Arab High School, I have a friend who teaches chemistry there. She's the lone chemistry teacher. Luckily, she's not a novice teacher, but I have another friend who's at a county school. She's a novice teacher. She could not do her lessons without Alabama Science in Motion. They provide expensive lab equipment to use for those labs. They drop it off. They come back when the labs are done. They pick it back up. It's a simple email or phone call to get those labs set up and brought to the schools and picked back up. We need to keep that funding. I don't know what you can do to help that, but teachers need that, and it's all over the state. I'd also like to ask you not to support SB 24, that is the repeal of the concealed permit carry. Blake Dorning's come out and asked for you not to support that as well. And I'd also like you to impeach Governor Bentley.
We hear you.
Representative, you have a question?
You still have a minute left, ma'am, if you want to share anything else.
Mr. Chairman, I have got more emails from people in my district that are science teachers. I've made copies of all those letters because they're all individual, and I've given copies of those to both the chairman of the Education Ways and Means, which is better, I think, referred to as the education budget, and I serve on that committee, and I also serve on education policy, and we're going to have a hearing on Science in Motion and so forth, and hear the side of the teachers. And I'm getting emails from all the state about that, but the ones I pay most attention to are the ones in my district, And I'm hearing from our science teachers that they won't be able to continue without it. And I have requested hearings in both the policy and the budget committee on that very subject, so we are working on it.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ma'am, as the Senate Budget Chair for Education, the budget was filed the first week of the session was Governor Bentley's recommended budget, and that's tradition. The budget will be in the Senate committee probably the second or third week in March or the first week in April. In that committee substitute that we're working on at this time, we intend to restore the $1.5 million for Science in Motion. So, however, that would be a substitute by and large crafted by myself and committee members. To sustain it, you and others like you need to stay very engaged and let your senators and representatives know how important it is to you. So you'll be off to a good start, but it'll be up to you all to finish it.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask Ms. Manis? Is it McManus? Do you also have chemistry, biology, physics, and what are the four science? And do you have all four areas of science in motion?
I'm not sure if physical science is supported in that. I don't know if they provide labs for that, but I do know physics, biology, and chemistry are included in that. And I believe in middle schools it's the AMSTI program.
Right. Someone said yes, but I'll double check. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Willis?
Hi, thank you. It's kind of hard to follow that, but I'll be quick. I am Sharon Willis, and currently I'm the director of the Enrichment Center. Prior to this position, I was principal of Discovery Middle School, and actually I've spent 39 years in education, and 18 of which were in Madison City, which I still dearly love. But as principal of Discovery Middle School, in February of 2010, I walked with my school through one of the most difficult times of my life. And every February 5th comes up, I usually shed a tear because I still struggle with what happened on that day. I had the loss of a precious student at the hands of another student. The EC, the Enrichment Center, came to Discovery and helped us through this time. I saw firsthand the difference that EC could make, that enrichment counselors could make. The enrichment counselor came and stayed with us through the remainder of that year. She helped my teachers. She helped my students quite a bit. She helped me, helped us walk through a really traumatic, emotional time for all of us. The Enrichment Center's ultimate goal is to have an enrich and impact counselor in every school in our community. Research tells us that 70% of students, they experience some sort of traumatic event before they're 16. Schools are the best places to serve adolescents and teens. Whether a student is simply having a bad day or experiences a traumatic life experience or crisis, the Enrich and Impact counselors that we provide are there to offer caring guidance, non-judgmental support, and professional resources. We also realize that 1 in 10 teens, 1 in 10, experiences a major depressive crisis in their life throughout that year. So 1 in 10 of every teenagers. That's why I would love to see that this legislative body, whoever can, to help support mental health in our schools. I would particularly love to see you support the Enrichment Center, as we're 501(c), and we are putting those counselors in every school that we can. Currently, we're in Huntsville City, we're in Madison City, and honestly, I would like to see us become the Enrichment Center of North Alabama and be in every school in our community. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Willis. Kathy Miller, Jennifer Brewer, and Lynn Edmondson, followed by Shannon Drake and John Hogan. So, Ms. Miller?
Yes, thank you. My name is Kathy Miller. I'm standing here today as the president of a small educational consulting firm, as well as a member of the Madison County Children's Policy Council. And I believe that everybody up there, as evidenced by the work that you've done in support of the pre-K program in Alabama, a very high-quality program, has shown that you agree that the first years that are so formative are critical for our children. Following child care standards is critical to providing a healthy and safe environment for every child that needs that kind of care when their folks are off working and trying to get better educated so they can provide for their children. Unfortunately, Alabama currently operates a dual child care licensing system, one of 7 states that does not require that all child care programs be licensed and inspected. This is a shock to a lot of folks that have children in child care who simply do not know that. This means that some child care programs are annually inspected by the Department of Human Resources and some are not. Health and safety inspections of all child care programs in Alabama are a common sense protection for all of our young children and something that we need. The Alabama minimum standards for daycare and nighttime centers, the state's licensing standards, were established to provide a universal floor of basic health and safety protections for children while they're in child care, including things like meeting a standard for a ratio of number of children that could be cared for by one person, requiring criminal background checks and CPR certification and first aid certification and training for staff. According to the 2016 Alabama Kids Count data, which I hope that many of you, if you have not seen the 2016 book, will take a look at it, published by Voices for Alabama's Children. Since 2000, the number of licensed programs in the state has decreased by 60%, while the number of unregulated and uninspected programs has increased by 50%. Even in our own affluent, wonderful Madison County, licensed exempt care now represents 45% of all child cares that are center-based in our county. Remember, that's the health and safety issue screaming at us. If we continue to do nothing, 10-year projections based on this data show that by 2025, license exempt programs would make up 70% of the programs that take care of our children. I hope that trend is as alarming to you as it is to me. Child care is not a luxury today. It is a foundational support for working parents, for people trying to improve the conditions for their families, for young children, and for our community. And so I stand with Voices to encourage you to look closely at that legislation when it comes before you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Brewer?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Brewer, and I'm here to talk about SB 16, which is the Judicial Override Bill. The Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution protects a defendant's right to an impartial jury. No capital sentencing procedure in the United States has come under such criticism or unreliable, unpredictable, and arbitrary than the unique Alabama practice of permitting elected trial judges to override jury verdicts of life and impose death sentences. Judicial candidates in Alabama routinely tout their commitment to punish criminals. Although the United States Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens has opined that a campaign promise to be tough on crime or to enforce the death penalty is evidence of bias that should disqualify a candidate from sitting in criminal cases, such rhetoric is ubiquitous in Alabama judicial campaigns. In 1995, in the dissenting opinion of Justice Stevens in Harris versus Alabama, and I have the cite if you'd like it, quote, Alabama's capital sentencing state is unique. In Alabama, unlike any other state in the Union, the trial judge has unbridled discretion to sentence the defendant to death, even though a jury has determined that death is an inappropriate penalty, and even though no basis exists for believing that any other reasonable, properly instructed jury would impose a death sentence, close quote. There are no meaningful standards to regulate an Alabama trial judge's ability to ignore a jury's life without parole verdict. Just 3 of Alabama's 67 counties account for nearly half of the life-to-death overrides statewide: Jefferson, Mobile, and Montgomery. Of the 31 states with the death penalty, Alabama is the only jurisdiction where judges routinely override jury verdicts of life to impose the death penalty. Nationwide, 157 prisoners on death row have been released because of evidence proving their innocence. There have been 98 Alabama overrides from life to death. Of the 98 people sentenced to death through judicial override in Alabama, 37% left death row after their convictions or sentences were reversed. Anthony Hinton was one such man found innocent after spending 30 years in prison. He was just released in 2015. African Americans in Alabama constitute 26% of the total population, but more than half of the overrides in Alabama have imposed the death penalty on African American defendants. How many black appellate court judges do we have in Alabama? How many black district attorneys do we have in Alabama? I couldn't find the answer to those two questions. Judge override is the primary reason why Alabama has the highest per capita death sentencing rate and execution rate in the country. Alabama's trial and appellate judges are elected because judicial candidates frequently campaign on their support and enthusiasm for capital punishment. Political pressure injects unfairness into the override decisions. Therefore, on election years, death sentences were imposed by judge override 30% compared to 7% during non-election years. The data suggests that override in Alabama is heavily influenced by arbitrary factors such as the timing of judicial elections, the politics of the county where the accused is prosecuted, and the outsized enthusiasm of certain judges for overriding jury life verdicts.
Ms. Brewer, would you wrap it up,
Judicial override is more common in cases involving white victims, which much more frequently than cases involving black victims. Some sentencing judges overriding jury verdicts reference the race of the offender and reveal illegal bias and race consciousness.
Ms. Brewer.
Just one more. In the current case of Kirksey versus Alabama, the U.S. Supreme Court granted a writ of certiorari. The judgment was vacated and the case remanded to the Court of Criminal Appeals of Alabama for further consideration in light of Hurst versus Florida. I ask you to please support SB 16.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. Ms. Edmondson.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Drake. I'm speaking on behalf of still serving veterans and retired Colonel Will Webb, who is on his way back.
I'm Lynn Edmondson.
Sorry. Ms. Edmonds was next.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
I thought you looked at me.
I did. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Edmondson.
Yes, and I've reset your time.
Could I bring forward?
Is it okay if she goes while you're doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm Shannon Drake with Still Serving Veterans, and I'm speaking on behalf of retired Colonel William Webb. We want to thank you for your support locally and through our line item in the general fund. But what I'm here to talk to you about is our mission is to serve and honor our veterans and their families and members of the Guards and Reserve as they do take that life transition out of the military and take the uniform off. We help them with veteran employment, working with their resumes, their interviewing skills, and networking, as well as the employers in town and the importance and education of why to hire a veteran. It's the smart thing to do and the right thing to do. We also help, and by the way, our average age of our individual going through our employment services right now is 52 years of age. It's not your young veteran that you would think of. It's all walks of life. The second part that we do is our veterans benefits and assistance, helping to navigate a system that can sometimes be very daunting, especially now that the VA is trying to push us into more of a computerized system called the e-benefits. It's harder for our elderly veterans, especially our Vietnam. Third is our community resources. Whether they're transitioning out for the first time or been out for a while, there may be needs that they don't know how to connect in the community. So we help them. Maybe it's rent assistance, utility assistance, or maybe it's just I can't feed my child because I don't get a paycheck for another week. We can connect them within our community. Since 2006, which when we're 10 years old, over 10 years old, we have seen over 35,000 veterans. We brought back to this community, $379 million in new services, salaries, and benefits at no charge to our clients whatsoever. Our president sits on Governor Bentley's Alabama Veterans Network Committee and chairs the Employment Committee. He also sits on the Small Business Council and the Workforce Development. He's also advised 3 of our secretaries of the VA. That's crucial this day and time. In 2016 alone, we saw over 10,000 veterans and conducted over 10,000 one-on-one services. We brought back $34.9 million just last year alone to this community. And we placed 737 in meaningful careers, which is astounding. And to date, we just checked, they're all still employed with the same employer. So we've been at war for over 15 years. It's overwhelming on our government, and we are having to move to the community support and to private sector. Right now, there's over 750,000 individuals that are unemployed, and over 250,000 will transition out of the military each year for the next 4 years. That's another 1 million veterans that are going to need our support. So I ask you to please look at the general fund line item that for VA, for veterans, has been decreased each year as we try to help as many as we can. So please, become a battle buddy with us and help support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drake. Ms. Edmondson.
I'm Lynn Edmondson, and I come to you as a retired educator. Please don't put RSA, teacher retirement system, at risk. And I gave you a handout specifically to my legislators, Richie Wharton and Steve Livingston. Thank you. And I don't consider retirement an entitlement. Rather, it is a fund that I have made monetary contributions to. Currently, the funded ratio as of fiscal year 2015 was 68% for that Alabama retirement system. And if you look at the graph, that's above the median of a summary of 131 pension plans in 50 states. So please do not change how our pension is invested and financed. Please support our current pension program. They seem to be doing just fine. And there are two other gentlemen from RSA. Can they speak? Do y'all want to use the rest of my time? Because that's all I had to say. No? Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you very
Edmondson.
much.
Mr. Hogan's? Mr. Hogan's, followed by Ms. Gould and Joanne Cummings.
My concern arises from an incident that occurred last July in the public housing projects here in Huntsville. The police were called to the home of a single mom of 6 kids. At the time the police arrived, there was nothing going on. There was no chaos, no problems. The policeman barged into the home unannounced and started screaming for everyone to get out of the house. Essentially, he escalated what was a non-situation into a sense of chaos. What happened was another police officer ended up slamming a 15-year-old daughter to the ground, causing a minor whiplash, wrist sprain. When the mom began to scream to leave her child alone, she was handcuffed and charged with disorderly conduct. She immediately filed a complaint with the Office of Internal Affairs, and they did come back and found that 2 officers were guilty of multiple violations of the police code and ethics and things. But instead of just dropping the charges against her, they wanted her to sign additional paperwork, basically silencing her so that they could sweep the whole thing under the rug. Mind you, the very next day that she got out of prison, her mugshot was published throughout the county, on the internet, and those kind of things, so she suffered that humiliation. They didn't want to offer any compensation for the bail that she had to post. And so essentially we began to look around and seek for help from the Citizens Advisory Board, City Council, and others. Couldn't get any help. Through consultations with several lawyers, essentially what we found out was that because there was no permanent injuries of that kind of nature where they could seek compensation for their own services, they wouldn't take up the case unless we had money to pay for them. In addition to that, what we found out is even if she had the charges dropped against her, she still faced an arrest record, which she had to pay several $1,000s to have expunged from her record. So my concern is, and the issue that we have is, how have we reached a point in our justice system where essentially lawyers, the Office of Internal Affairs, police department themselves have determined that the police officers were guilty. However, all of that is kept from public knowledge and swept under the rug, while the person who was wrongfully arrested has had to endure the humiliation, of the photos, the being arrested, the danger of having her children left at home and her in prison. And yet all of this seems to be based, as the gentleman stated earlier, on financial means to fight the system. And I would like to see, if there's some kind of legislation or activities where we have more transparency as far as police officers being disciplinary action, as well as protection for those who have been wrongfully arrested.
Hillary Gold, followed by Joanne Cummins and Tom Beauchesne. So, Hillary?
Hi, thank you for welcoming public comment regarding the upcoming legislation that has not yet hit the floor yet. My name is Hillary Gould. I am a mother, a past PTA president, a wife of an Army civilian with Redstone Arsenal, and I currently work with low-income residents in our community. We moved to Huntsville in 2005, and I am passionate about helping Huntsville continue to lead Alabama as a forward-thinking and progressive community. I have provided information on 2 bills. You'll see these little handouts out there. Pink is no, yellow is yes. First, I am asking that you vote no on House Bill 24, the Alabama Child Placing Agency Inclusion Act, which is really a bill designed to discriminate against qualified LGBTQ couples who want to foster and or adopt. One of the cruelest consequences of these type bills is that they would allow agencies to refuse foster children to be placed with members of their extended family, based solely on the agency's religious beliefs. A loving LGBT grandparent, for example, or a stable, welcoming LGBT relative could be deemed unsuitable under this proposed law. Secondly, I'm asking that you vote yes on House Bill 8, the Hate Crimes Bill, which would provide additional penalties for crimes motivated by the victim's sexual orientation or gender identity or expression, and recognize these offenses as hate crimes. Under existing law, hate crimes include the victim's race, color, religion, national origin, ethnicity, or physical and mental ability. LGBTQ Alabamians are disproportionately targets of hate violence and should be included as a hate crime. Hate crimes target a particular group of people and terrorize entire communities, not just the victim. Huntsville has a long tradition of being on the right side of history. From Sonny Hereford integrating our schools peacefully in September 1963, to our Madison County Courthouse peacefully issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples in February of 2015. Please, please keep Huntsville and Madison County on the right side of history. Please vote no on House Bill 24 and yes on House Bill 8. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Cummings, followed by Tom Beauchesne and Jackie Reed.
Hello, my name is Joanne Cummings. I'm from Decatur in Senate District 3. I'm speaking today about HB 44, the bill to eliminate sales tax on groceries. Legislators, including Representative John Knight, have been trying for the last 10 years to get this bill passed. Alabama is one of the few states that has full or partial sales tax on groceries. This adds 8 to 10% to the food bill of every citizen in the state, but it is most painful for a third to half of the citizens who are struggling day to day to put food on the table and make their ends meet. This regressive tax is a shameful burden on the poor and suppresses our economy as the poor pay the sales tax on food instead of buying other goods they need, which would also generate some additional sales tax. The loss of state sales tax revenue by this measure is about $350 million, according to some old numbers that John Knight had. The way to pay for this is the elimination of the federal income tax deduction from your taxable state income. This tax deduction is most beneficial to those who make the most money because they are in a higher tax bracket and are more likely to itemize their deductions. According to Representative John Knight's previous work on this, it is worth a recapture of about $500 million in state income tax revenue by eliminating this tax deduction. So the Alabama budget would come out ahead, and everybody, but especially the poor and the rest of the citizens, would benefit. Please support HB 44 and any bill to eliminate the federal income tax deduction, which were available last year, and I hope that it will be reintroduced. I would also like to talk about voting rights. Citizens in Alabama need to be assured that they have access to their ability to vote. I support those bills that enhance that, including the one that has driver license offices open in each county at least 1 day per week. Voter registration on any day that the Board of Registrars is open. The two bills on automatic voter registration when you're getting a driver's license or other form of ID. And hopefully we might even add early voting 4 to 6 days before the election. Thank you.
Tom, followed by Jackie Reed and Nancy Robinson. So, Tom.
Good evening. My name is Tom Borcher. I live within District 20, so it's good to see you guys tonight. I didn't expect to follow the first speaker in terms of talking about additional taxes, but that's what I'd like to talk about for just a moment, but a different kind. The well-worn cliche is you get what you pay for. And year after year, I read that the legislature is searching frantically for revenues to pay for ongoing programs. But unfortunately, I also read that Alabama is often at the lower rankings of states in multiple categories. And why? Because Alabamans are getting what they're paying for, which is not enough. I'm here to suggest that in reality, the best way to lift Alabama out of its fiscal quagmire would be to raise the income tax rate or add additional ratings to what we already have. I've watched as legislative session after legislative session picks on certain groups like gamblers or smokers or drinkers in an effort to get the funds. Easy groups that don't hurt if you attack them politically. But instead of long-term solutions, which is what we should be looking for, we're looking for these new tax source Band-Aids that just don't work. Medicaid funding, law enforcement, prison security, and infrastructure all require major input of funds, which it appears we are lacking. If the state truly believes that the programs that it is proposing, if the legislature truly believes those programs are beneficial, and I'm going to assume that you do, then everyone ought to pay for them. Everyone ought to pay for them. I will go so far as to say that raising the state income tax rate is not only the most equitable alternative, but it is the most fair and even-handed one. Everyone pays according to their relative financial strength. It's not a regressive tax like the sales tax or the food tax that we just talked about. Corporations, of course, should pay their fair share, but that's for someone else's 3 minutes. And yes, actually, debt is actually a healthy fiscal policy in some instances, but paying large amounts of unnecessary debt is throwing hard-earned taxpayer money out that proverbial window. So I would just like to put a bug in your ear, that's all. There are those of us who recognize that good citizens must pay for the services the state provides, and we are willing to do so on an even-handed basis, not for boondoggles, but for legitimate programs. So to those that say raising income tax is off the table, I would say it's actually probably the only viable option to equitably fund the programs of the state for the long term, which is what we all should be concentrating on. Thank you.
Jackie Reed, followed by Nancy Robinson and Jamie Masternick.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank you for spending your time with us tonight. And this is my kind of government right here. When all the people are interested and like to see what you're going to do for them. Anyway, Alabama's unique in its own government style. We all know that. I was here early tonight, and I encouraged a lot of people to sign up early. Next year, I'd like to be a part of the system and be here early and help these people. I blame me if they don't get to talk tonight because I said, we'll make this official. But then I was told wrong. They picked up my paperwork, and half of them lost their place in line, and I apologize. I'm sorry. Anyway, I didn't make it official, but I want to make it official next time. I just want to say that at the last election, the presidential election, there were 14 amendments that was slid in there. Everybody had their mind on the president's election, and nobody knew, I don't really believe they knew what those 14 amendments were that you slid in on those ballots. You pulled the wool over on them, in my opinion. Because I went to the legislative office and picked up 2 or 3, and I'd like to tell that gentleman over there, you do have a property tax coming, whether you like it or don't like it. You voted for it, so you got one coming. I hope it's high enough for you, so if you don't, you can go back. Anyway, and then the partnership with the parks, you're going to let the developers pick up the parks and take over the parks. There's just so much in those amendments that you don't read and you don't know about that they shove in your face, so you need to know what's going on down there in Montgomery. It's pretty slick and pretty wild. Anyway, I'm not smart, but I can sort of keep up with them sometimes. I believe in, I have to go along with the Madison County Sheriff. He's not happy with that bill about the gun law. I wish you had time tonight to tell all of us about that gun law. But if the Madison County Sheriff's not happy, do away with that, go back and start over and quit turning these people loose to run up and down the streets with their guns. We don't want that, we don't need that, and we're not going to put up with that. That is not good government. Economic development, that's how you voted your property tax, economic development. You know what that is? I believe in good jobs. I believe in economic development. But we the people, cannot buy their property for millions, build their buildings, pay them to set up the jobs, and stay here for 10 years and maybe pull out. 70 million here, 50 million here. Look, the good old boys just got money. Make them lay something on the table and help us pay for some of the stuff. We cannot pay for that. That's going on in this city and in this state. And I know y'all are wasting a lot of good money down there too, so tighten it up. Tighten it up and start thinking about we the people up here. I try to keep up with you, and I write about you if you do wrong. I write in a paper speaking out news, but I want to hear good stuff coming from every one of you up there. If you don't, you know what, you'll hear about it. We'll be trying to remove you and get some new ones in there. So do what's right. Thank you. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
I do love you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Nancy?
Okay.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Good evening.
Follow that.
My name's Nancy Robertson. I work at TARCOG. I want to say thank you for giving us all the opportunity to speak with all of you at one time tonight. It's really an opportunity. Thank you. I have put a copy of our annual report up at your desk. It shows the economic impact of the programs that we do in the communities that you represent. So I hope you'll have a moment to look through that and see the extent of what we do in the area. I wanted to talk with you for a second about Medicaid program. I know that is a real issue to all of you. You'll all be debating the budget because there are some significant problems there. The part that we are involved with is the Medicaid waiver program that provides services to people who are poor enough to be on Medicaid and sick enough to be in a nursing home. And we're able to, for many people, hundreds of them, keep them at home with services there at a cost of right about $800 a month versus $6,300 a month in a nursing home. The Medicaid waiver program has saved Medicaid over $48 million over the cost of home care just in our region just last year. It's a tremendous program, and I know that you all, as a body, are very supportive of it. As Medicaid is changing right now, and the integrated care network structure is being discussed, I hope you'll consider the role that aging programs have played in the implementation of Medicaid as an extremely cost-efficient service to thousands of these clients all over the state who would otherwise need nursing home care. We've got a statewide network in place. We've got decades of experience. We've got a history of being cost efficient, and we want to continue doing this service. So we're hoping that the management and the function of management will stay within our state and not an out-of-state managed care company, and that aging programs can continue that function. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's Jamie, and I'm not sure how to pronounce James. She is Tim Coles and Linda Meggs.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jamie Murnick from Huntsville in 35801, District 21. So I have two categories of issues that those I oppose and those I support. So first of all, HB 24, the Child Placing Agency Inclusion Act. My read is that this is really an exclusion act, excluding possible foster and adoptive placements that agencies deem unfit for religious or other reasons. As a court-appointed juvenile advocate, or CAJA, in Madison County, I can attest to the serious lack of good adoptive families in Alabama. Why would you legislate to reduce that very important pool further? For example, two women who have escaped abusive marriages with their children, who live together and want to adopt the kids, and maybe foster more kids into their loving home, could legally be denied adoptions by this act. If an agency chose to discriminate based on perceived or real gender orientation, just vote no. And what about House Bill 147, to allow the use of sunscreen in schools? Is this currently illegal? I called. It's not. Just please vote no on HB 24 and on 147. Then there's the SB 1, the Alabama Privacy Act, also known as the bathroom bill. You should ask the bill's sponsor to provide the data on the incidents in Alabama of voyeurism, exhibitionism, molestation, and assault and battery, which is quoted in the act as being important in bathrooms, I guess. But what are the data on that? I'd like to see it. And is this the kind of jobs bill you want to be remembered for? Creating jobs in Johns? To provide bathroom monitors. And how will they check the gender? At gunpoint? Because that's what it would take for me to drop my drawers. So why create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist and has had disastrous economic consequences in other states? This is really a smokescreen for gender orientation discrimination. Please vote no. Here's what I do support: finally establishing a state minimum wage of $10 per hour. And it's based on cost of living and revised every 3 years. Yay, vote yes on HB 26. And then to authorize voting during the 4 to 6 days immediately preceding an election. This will absolutely enable more voters to cast their ballot. Please vote yes on HB 30. So there's one more, and that's exempting the sales tax on food. We've already mentioned that. Yay, please vote to join the majority of less regressive states, 36 of them, that exempt groceries on sales tax. And finally, let's reform the gas tax. Alabama's 25-year-old law has not kept up with fuel efficiency nor inflation, leaving Alabama with much lower than the national average. In fact, we're 40th of 50 states, and you get what you pay for. You can balance a less regressive tax exemption on food with an overdue increase of the gas tax and gain funds to repair our many pitiful roads. Kudos to the House for passing a reasonable tax gas tax last year, and shame on the Senate. I wish one of you would sponsor a gas tax bill. I would argue that gas tax can be used for road improvements to design safer roads for bicycle transportation. There's a lot of support for safer bicycle facilities, especially here in Huntsville. Many here are really excited about the 2 bicycle share programs that have or are being established in Huntsville, the Huntsville Urban Bike Share and the City of Huntsville Bike Share starting March 1st.
Jamie.
Please act to support our local efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim Coles.
I'm Tim Coles from Madison. I'll be brief because I believe both my points were made earlier. First thing I'd like to urge is for the legislature to get off your hands and impeach this governor. He's and I have communicated with Mac, and I've copied several of you over the last several months about this. I'm sorry, Representative McCutcheon. But it's really long overdue. He squandered any of his credibility, and he's most likely committed many campaign finance violations, so you need to get on with it. It's an embarrassment to the state to have this guy there. And that leads me to the second point that was made very articulately by the minister earlier. This prison boondoggle he's proposed, it stinks in a number of ways. 30 years bond, the dubious savings from operations, the lack of design, the contract, let's see, what do they call it? The design build contract where you might not even get any competition so you could keep prices down. The whole thing stinks. And I just urge you to, and I'm not against prison reform. I volunteer at Limestone. I go in there. The conditions aren't great. I mean, they need to be a lot better. But what the governor has proposed is not the solution. So I will yield back my time to the next person who has more prepared comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. After Ms. Meggs is Hannah Ellis and Swabani Kukani and Al Garrett.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here and for this opportunity to hear and respond to your constituents' questions and concerns. My name is Linda Meggs, and I live here in Huntsville. I have a 2-part question, and you'll see that both parts are tied to former Alabama Attorney General and current U.S. Senator Luther Strange and Governor Bentley. As you know, 10 months ago, members of the Alabama House of Representatives signed a resolution to impeach Governor Bentley for corruption and neglect of duty. Then, Attorney General Luther Strange convened a grand jury to investigate the governor, but that investigation quickly bogged down in legal disputes and the Judiciary Committee's inability to compel the governor and others to testify. Then, Attorney General Luther Strange asked the Judiciary Committee to stand down because it might interfere with related work by his office, so the committee suspended its investigation. Now, Luther Strange has been granted an appointment from Governor Bentley, shock, to replace Jeff Sessions in the United States Senate. And Governor Bentley says he won't order a special election for that Senate seat until 2018, even though the state law, Section 3698, says that if a vacancy occurs in a Senate seat more than 4 months, how many months is it before a general election? A lot more than 4. The governor is to call a special election forthwith. I think that's more prompt than what we're looking at. So, here is my 2-part question. Number 1, what are you going to do to move forward with the impeachment of Governor Bentley? I think you've heard that's a popular thing to do here. And 2, what are you going to do to order a special election for Jeff Sessions' Senate seat this year? Thank you.
Ms. Ellis? Ms. Ellis? Okay.
Hi, my name is Swapna Kakani, and I'm a rare disease patient advocate and the state leader for Alabama Rare Disease Week. I was born with a rare disease 27 years ago called short bowel syndrome. I became dependent of IV nutrition and a feeding tube and have had 62 surgeries, including a small intestine transplant 2.5 years ago. To survive, I had to go out of state to get all my care. A rare disease is defined as a disease that affects less than 200,000 people, but we have almost 7,000 rare diseases in our country, and almost 30 million people are affected by rare disease. 1 in 10 Americans have a rare disease. There's 10 of you sitting up here right now. That means 1 of you may have a rare disease in your lifetime, and probably 1 in every row will have a rare disease in this room. That means almost 400,000 just in Alabama. So that is why rare diseases is not something to be put under the rug, but an issue that's important to be shined in the spotlight, and why we're doing a Rare Disease Day State House advocacy event next Wednesday on March 1st at the 6th floor lobby of the State House in Montgomery. I ask each of you to attend. It's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We'll have a collection of profiles of patients with rare diseases in Alabama that identify their main struggles living with a rare disease. Although we all have different rare diseases, we all have the same struggles as Alabama residents. Details are explained in the set of papers I've left on your seat. In addition, I'm here to ask for your support for the bill to create an Alabama State Rare Disease Commission. April Weaver, chair of the Health Committee, currently has it and is working on it and is about to present it to her fellow legislators. We ask you to collaborate and to call her and to work on it together, especially those present that are on the Senate Health Committee, the House Health Committee, and the Rules Committee. This council will be one of only 5 in the nation that have been created. This will put Alabama on the map, and for at least one reason, we'll be at the forefront instead of at the end of history. And this will create economic development. We have powerhouses in our backyard, UAB, Children's, Hudson Alpha. This council allows them to go to their potential and have people from all over the country and all over the world come to Alabama to get state-of-the-art care. I've partnered with Hudson Alpha and Children's and UAB to put on this event next week, and we have support from UAB for this council. I'm here with Kristen Anthony, of the president of the P10 Foundation, a rare disease patient, and Cindy Jones from the Cytosterolemia Foundation. And we have talked to Phil Williams and Jim Patterson about these issues. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kakani. Ms. Ellis, followed by Al Garrett and Ms. Dohit.
Good evening, senators and representatives. Tonight, I also want to talk about our governor, as I know this investigation is very pressing, and a number of you are working so hard on it. My talk will contain some adult subject material and a graphic that may be uncomfortable for some. If you'd like to step out, or any children are in the room, I'd recommend they step out. I am Hannah Ellis, and I'm speaking on behalf of just myself tonight. I'm the gal that chokes on cornbread and lots of years on Alabama politics. So bless y'all's hearts. I'm here again because it didn't pass last year. So I think it would be fair, though, to say, as we're talking about the governor, that I, and most everybody in the room, knows a lot more about governor's sex life than we ever wished that we knew. But I'm here to ask you tonight to consider the sex lives of Alabama mothers. Do you ever stop to wonder how good sex is for a woman who has been sliced open via major abdominal cesarean surgery? How much sex can she have when she gets an infection and she's unable to move normally for weeks afterward? Thanks. Requires to stay in ICU and have home health care. Some mothers are unable to move normally for weeks afterward and suffer pain and discomfort and numbness in their incision sites for years. And yes, incontinence happens after cesarean too. Remember that 1 in 3 mothers are having cesarean sections in our hospital, and too many of them are for no true medical reason, but rather physician convenience or not following ACOG's guidelines for safe prevention of cesarean. Have you ever seen a 3rd or 4th degree vaginal tear where a woman tears through her birth canal into her anal opening during childbirth? Women sit gingerly in pain for weeks after their tears or episiotomies and often struggle with incontinence for years? Have you watched postpartum depression sink in and mothers be unable to resume normal sex lives? How good is sex when you can't control your bladder or your bowels or both? Have you held a woman like I have when she cries and tells you that she's ashamed because her infection down there stinks? One of the things that I will be forever grateful to my midwife for is that I gave birth whole and intact because of her model of care. Statistically, the midwife's model of care has been shown to reduce the incidence of birth injury, trauma, and cesarean section. In other words, midwives are good at protecting bellies and good at protecting bottoms. Some things are unavoidable, but less surgeries, fewer episiotomies are a good thing. So let's do this investigation, but please, let's free the midwives. This investigation is important, but moms and babies are more important. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garrett.
My name is Reverend Al Garrett. I serve in the Huntsville hub of Faith in Action, Alabama. I'm joined this evening by a number of them. Would you please stand? Number of those who are with the Huntsville hub. Faith in Action Alabama is interfaith, interracial. We have hubs in Mobile, Montgomery, Birmingham, and Huntsville. Much of our research for the last several months has to do with incarceration or mass incarceration, and much of the research has helped us to recognize that here in North Alabama, we have a need for a public defender's office. There are many, and when you ran for office, you said you wanted to serve all those in your districts. That includes those who didn't vote for you and those who didn't vote at all. There's one thing that I want to share with us that has done my heart good this evening. David says in Psalm 27, I had fainted unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And tonight I have witnessed one voice speaking, because a lot of people it makes it sound like the constituencies are divided. But tonight has clearly demonstrated that we are really speaking with one voice. It's much more likely if there's division, it's between those who elected you and those who are serving. So we really would like for you to hear us clearly. We really need you to hear all of the wonderful things that your constituency has been sharing with you this evening, and to respond in a way that hopefully will not cause us, when it comes time for your reelection, to look in another direction. I'm amazed. I marvel at what God has done tonight, because people have been speaking out in ways, again, that clearly says your constituency isn't divided.
Thank you, Reverend. We have about 30 minutes left, so as we stage, I'd appreciate you coming on up and getting ready to go. Gail Williams, there's another sheet. Okay. Gail Williams, Pippa Abston, and Doug C. So, Ms. O'Head.
Hi, my name is Marie Douthit, and this right here is Peyton, my 1-month-old son. Peyton is named after Peyton Manning, not only because my husband is a diehard Volunteers fan, I married him anyway, but because little Peyton here was born in Tennessee. He's what we call a border baby. We live just 1.2 miles from the Tennessee state line outside of Ardmore, but because I live in Alabama, I had to drive over an hour to have my child born outside of a hospital with a certified professional midwife. In 2013, I had my daughter by cesarean section. which I later learned was caused by multiple unnecessary interventions in a hospital setting. Interventions that studies have shown do not improve birth outcomes, increase cesarean rates, and actually result in negative birth outcomes for many mothers. But these interventions happen and are actually the standard of care in most Alabama hospitals. So with my second pregnancy, I wanted truly evidence-based care. And as I searched for a new provider, I found that it was very difficult to come by here in North Alabama. And if I could find a good obstetric provider that practiced evidence-based care, there are hospital policies that, even though the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists have stated time and time again are not what's best for mom and baby, these policies are still in place in Alabama hospitals. So I didn't want to have to fight for my basic rights during labor, and I decided to go with a certified professional midwife in Tennessee. All of these studies show that things that are done in hospitals have negative effects on birth outcomes. There's also studies that show midwifery care has been proven to improve birth outcomes, decrease cesarean rates, and increase access to care for mothers. That's something that I think Alabama should pay close attention to, considering we're ranked 49th in the country in infant mortality. I am here to ask for your support of the Childbirth Freedom Act, a bill that Representative Ken Johnson will be filing tomorrow. This bill is not just about women like me who choose midwifery care, although we definitely deserve that choice in our births. This bill is about women in Alabama who need midwifery care. The women of rural Alabama should not have to travel over an hour to the nearest OBGYN within our state when they could have a certified professional midwife provide prenatal care at their own home and, if they so choose, birth their babies in their homes. This is not just a social issue, but a health and safety issue as well. This is also a fiscal issue. A recent study in the states of Washington and Florida showed that midwives save Medicaid in those states millions of dollars. Let's do a little math. I'm an engineer, I like math. 30,000 births were paid for in 2012 by Medicaid in Alabama. If just 1% of those mothers had access to a midwife or an out-of-hospital birth center, with an average savings of $7,000 per birth, that would amount to a savings of $2 million to Medicaid. That's just 1%. I ask you to please support the Childbirth Freedom Act and urge your fellow legislators to do the same. And please ask Representative Weaver to bring this to a vote in the Health Committee immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone, if you're speaking on the same subject, you may just pass off so that some of the others can get. We have a pretty long list here. We may not be able to get to all of them. So, Ms. Williams?
Abston?
Gail Williams?
Yes.
Hey.
I was going to speak on judicial override too, but it's already been spoken about, but I think she left out one point. House Bill 32 would require the jury to have a unanimous vote for the death penalty. We're one of 4 states that allows 10 people to vote for the death penalty. We're the only state left that has judicial override. We're last again. Mississippi's already done away with it. We've got to quit being last. And I think I can agree with just about every issue that's been brought up tonight. They've been great.
Ms. Abston?
Yes, I'm Pippa Abston. I'm a pediatrician in Huntsville. I'm here tonight with Moral Movement Alabama, which is a statewide multicultural coalition of organizations and individuals fighting for a moral, legislative, and policy agenda for all. We've visited you several times in Montgomery, and we've brought our healthcare justice quilt as a visual reminder of what happens when people in our state can't get health insurance. Based on the most conservative estimates of a 25% excess death rate for uninsurance, at least 1,000 human beings in Alabama die prematurely every year simply due to lack of health insurance. Alabama has the second highest infant mortality rate in the United States, comparable to some third world countries, and we're 48th in life expectancy. Since 2010, we've lost $3 billion in 5 rural hospitals due to not taking the Medicaid expansion. Even so, the Alabama Healthcare Improvement Task Force has said that expanding now would still bring an extra $1.2 billion into our economy. Our healthcare justice quilt has 1,000 squares. It's 8 feet wide by 20 feet long. I sewed 700 of those squares. Each square represents a human life lost in our state due to lack of health insurance, a preventable cause of death. 1,000 deaths a year is unacceptable. Our plan for the quilt is to write names of those who've died prematurely. And this is not restricted by year. We have pens here for any of you who wish to contribute names tonight. We urge you, our legislators, to take a good look at the quilt. Your decisions about our Medicaid system are a life and death issue, including for children. We ask you to fully fund our state Medicaid program and to expand it while we still have that option available. Thank you.
Doug C. Followed by Amber Jones and Rosa Toussaint. Rosa Toussaint.
Thank you very much, senators and representatives. Thank you for your time, your attention. I want to praise the opportunity that I have right now for a positive action coming out of Montgomery. Both the House and the Senate at the moment have a ban on judicial overrides in process and moving. I hope you will keep those moving forward. So that's something positive, okay? You've been beat up enough. This is something positive. Thanks. And I hope that the legislature will try to do things that are positive, not restricting, not telling teachers how to teach or what kind of standards to have or what dates to open schools. You know, keep it on the positive. And I'm going to offer a way for you to solve the money problems that have been tossed in your lap today. Well, they're down there anyway, whether these people call them to your attention or not, but they're down there, okay? Think about education. We're rotten, aren't we? I mean, Alabama's just not performing. Has it been performing? I don't know. It's been a long time. I was born here. I've never heard anything great. Nobody's ever stood up and said, hey, we're above the 50% mark in the United States. I've never heard that, okay? But I'll tell you what, let's imagine for a moment that you had that magic wand. You really fixed education in Alabama. Fix it, man. I mean, everybody graduates from high school. A great plurality go to college, graduate. You know, this is an educated society. We're doing great. What'll happen? They'll have jobs, income. Okay? With jobs, what happens? They might even afford their own health care. Woo, health insurance, things like that. All right, great. They'll have housing. Housing problem goes away. Hey, jobs, housing, starting to sound pretty good yet? Okay, what about the crime rate goes down? Crime rate among, you know, the poor, it's just pushed on them, okay? With the crime rate, then what happens? Criminal justice system has less demand. Fewer cases in court, you need fewer cops on the beat, okay? Less government. Whoa, I know that sounded bad to you guys, but honestly, you know, a little less out of the negative side of the budget. Hey, that's fixing your budget problem, okay? Fewer jails help satisfy some of the prison problems that we have. Let's fix education. Let's find out how to do it, not dictate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Say. Following Rosa Toussaint is Jerry Burnett and Tim Brown. So, Ms. Jones?
Yes, I'm Barbara Jones, and with me is Elizabeth Estopanel, and we're with the Huntsville Library Foundation. And as many of you know, we're in the process right now of building 3 new libraries, or renovating 3 new libraries for the city of Huntsville. And this is so important because libraries are no longer just a place where kids go in and check out a book. And we are particularly concerned right now, and our work, we're on the committee, the Capital Committee for the North Huntsville Library. And what we're trying to do is to renovate the police academy, and with that, it will have a and we've just given you a picture in there in the brochure that you received, something that will be very, very valuable to the North Huntsville community. The other 2 libraries that are being built are in Madison and South Huntsville. And we need your help in making this happen because, well, needless to say, raising money from our community is a little more difficult than raising money in South Huntsville and in Madison. But we have received funds from the City Council. But the City Council says unless all the money is in place to build the libraries, construction will not begin. We have received some donations. We've received a large donation for the 3 libraries from Redstone Federal Credit Union. We received a large donation from First Missionary Baptist Church. But we do not have all of the funds needed, and we will be contacting each of you to talk to you about some of your discretionary funds to support this particular program. We still need $1.2 million to complete the funds necessary for the North Huntsville Library. We're getting money, but many businesses will not donate for capital funds. They'll donate for programs. We have parents and children sitting out in the parking lot next to our double-wide trailer that is called a library in North Huntsville, the Bessie K. Russell. And you say, well, why are you out there with your kids at night? Because you got the free Wi-Fi. And the Wi-Fi signals come in from the library, and they sit there so their kids can do their homework. And this library will not only have computer rooms, but it will have computer instruction. It will have meeting places where people in the community who want to have a meeting can go into the library and have a place that they can meet. There is a library fund. The funds have been donated for that, for a large auditorium, so that different kinds of activities can take place in the community. But we need help. We need your help. We need the help of the Huntsville community, because we need to make this happen, and that's where we're standing at this point. We'll have, like I said, the meeting rooms, but we need our children.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Thank you. Sorry.
I'll finish my little sentence. We need our children to become independent learners, where they're not just doing their lesson. Thank you.
Ms. Toussaint?
Rosa Toussaint. I'm a community services chaplain. All I ask of you is this: if you consider yourself a Christian, at the time of giving your approval to a bill, remember Jesus' teaching to love your neighbors as yourself. In 1978, I was not a U.S. citizen, but I joined the U.S. Army while living in Puerto Rico. I was 18 years old. I was not concerned about dying. All I had in my mind was, American people are good people. I arrived to Fort McClellan in Anniston, Alabama for basic training on September 1978, and soon I learned about the racist people of Alabama. Today is February 20, 2017. And the news is making us aware of an email that it was sent to the Islamic Center in Huntsville, Alabama, of someone saying that they will attack Muslims, blacks, and Hispanics. In Alabama, U.S. Hispanic citizens and legal residents are experiencing a second-class treatment. I am asking of you to create a committee with the purpose of protecting the rights of Hispanic citizens and educate Alabamians on who we are. Most Alabamians don't even know that Puerto Ricans are born U.S. citizens. Thank you. 3 minutes is not enough to bring a solution to the problem that Hispanics are facing in Alabama. Puerto Ricans and other Hispanic U.S. citizens and legal residents have been harassed in Alabama because of their accent, lack of English, and the color of their skin. I am telling you today, if you don't do anything to change Alabama from being known as a racist state, our children and grandchildren will pay the price. The gangs and minorities hate groups will increase. I pray over your life today. I pray that you will know what to do and what to do and which way to go, because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Matthew 7:14. Thank you for this opportunity.
Jerry Burnett, Tim Brown, Amber Jones. So,
Good evening.
good evening, Jerry.
I am Jerry Burnett, and I want to thank this legislation body for being here today. And I also want to congratulate my representative, Anthony Daniels, and also Mac McCutcheon, who's not here, on bringing the leadership of Alabama here to Madison County. Thank you. I also want to know why was it important for our state legislators to draft, introduce, and pass a resolution to adopt the Trump agenda when so many people all around the world and a number of members in Congress and the U.S. Senate has begun to question the president's mental health. I also have copies of letters that was written by New York Times and signed by more than 30 psychiatrists warning the nation about President Trump's grave mental instability. I have letters here for this body. We all have seen this president in action, where he say one thing today, something else tomorrow, and denies it all instantly. It appears to me that U.S. state representatives would be more concerned about your constituents than to just pass on any old nonsense as being beneficial. You and I know that one cannot govern by just making up stuff without any facts. So I ask, what does it mean for me and all your constituents that you adopt the Trump agenda? Is this some kind of political partisan game where you're putting party ahead of country? It is my desire that as our elected leaders, you will have the courage to lead with honesty and integrity, making the best choice possible that beneficial to all of that all you represent. Without representing us, without having to criticize you. Now, we have seen the games of obstructions that the Republican Party played over the 8 years, and it has not been good for the country. Alabama received more than $1 billion in stimulus funding that our legislators in Washington object to. Can anyone tell me how better off the state of Alabama would have been had we not received the economic stimulus money? We have seen this legislation body object the Obama agenda and the Affordable Health Care bill, and as a result of that, numerous of hospitals across the state of Alabama have closed the doors because the lack of funding, and thousands of Alabamians have died because they could not afford to get health care needed. And God only knows, can I have just one more minute? And God only knows how many jobs went down the drain because 25,000, okay. Now, so please don't play partisan games with
Thank you,
constituents.
Jerry. So we need
It
to move
costs
on. We
lives.
have many others to speak, if you don't mind. So.
Excuse me?
We have very many others to speak, if you don't mind. We need to move on.
Thank
So.
you. But,
Thank you. Tim Brown, Amber Jones, followed by Rocky Jacks.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Tim Brown. I serve as chair of the Realtor Party Committee for the Huntsville Area Association of Realtors. Realtors across the state of Alabama support the Alabama Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit. And in 2016, May of 2016, this tax credit expired. This act provided $20 million in tax credits annually for rehabbing of commercial and residential historic buildings, with cases like the Lyric Theater in Birmingham, shining examples of this credit success. We believe the renewal of this tax credit would create exciting economic development, both commercial and residential, and we as realtors ask if you would support this legislation.
Thank you, Tim. Amber Jones. Okay, Rocky Jacks, Ava Caldwell, Paige Martin. So,
I consider it an honor to be with you here tonight. John F. Kennedy once said, "My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." I intend to help JFK to have his words fulfilled by focusing my legislation on my state. My proposed legislation is after the pattern of the state of Ohio, and the legislative body has passed it in that state, and the governor has signed it into law. While some politicians may create legislation to waste the time and money of the taxpayers, my proposed legislation will save something greater than money. It will save lives. Ohio has seen a problem with the safety of its police officers. They have identified the problem and they have fixed it. If Texas would have passed legislation after the state of Ohio, then police officer Don Allen, who was found dead inside of his home in Clyde, Texas, would not have been murdered by a criminal. I feel that there is a sense of urgency to pass legislation to solve these problems. Sean Spencer, White House press secretary for President Trump, responded to Major Garrett's question and brought out a great point of view symbolically about passing legislation to protect police officers everywhere. In the January 30th, 2017 White House press briefing, he said, quote, "I think what we're trying to say is you don't know when the next threat is coming. You don't know when the next attack's coming, and so the best you can do is to get ahead of it, because if you wait, you're going to be reacting. The president is not going to wait. He's going to make sure that he is going to do everything in his power when he can to protect the homeland and its people. Getting ahead of threats is the key. Not waiting until they happen, not saying, hey, once it happens, how do we react to it to make sure it doesn't happen again?" Since becoming president, he's continued to take steps through executive order and otherwise to make sure that this country is as safe as it can be and that we're ahead of every threat, end of quote. I feel that the Madison County legislature should feel the same way about this state issue. I propose that we call this piece of legislation the Public Servants Protection Act of 2017. Thank you very much.
thank you. Ms. Caldwell?
Hi, my name is Ava Caldwell. Good evening. I just made it. Okay. All right, I'm going to just start off by talking about someone. My sister-in-law is 55 years old, partially mentally handicapped. She's worked most of her adult life, always at minimum wage type jobs, usually in fast food. She's never been on permanent disability because she's able to drive and work. She works hours that she's able to get, and that is not in excess of 40 hours currently, many times because after 40 hours, employers are required to give you health care, right? So She makes less than $10,000 or so dollars a year. So I said, okay, that's no problem. Let's check out Obamacare. After she clicked through the steps, she received a message that, sorry, you fall in the gap. That dreaded gap, if you don't know about it. Alabama thinks that someone who makes less than $10,000 a year and who's doing their best doesn't warrant help from Medicaid. We searched for a private policy for her because she really needs the health care. It's not like some, even well person who would need on Medicaid. She has problems. The cheapest was $550 a month. That's more than I pay for a family of 4 as a federal employee. So I ask you, is this fair? I know the president is about to put forward a plan for repeal and replace of Obamacare. I ask that you think of your poorest constituents on the review of this plan and ask yourself, if you made only $10,000 or $15,000 a year, would this plan be able to cover you? Would you be able to afford the health insurance? It's not just about access. As Bernie Sanders said in his last debate against Ted Cruz, I may have access to purchase Donald Trump's home for $5 million, but if I don't have $5 million, it's kind of a moot point. All right, so we want you to ensure that the program works for the poorest of Alabama who depend on you to speak for them, that are likely not in this room tonight, and they're likely not the people you heard from. Maybe they couldn't even vote for you because they couldn't afford the gas to get there to vote for you. If there's a long delay in the repeal and replace, even though we hear they're going to bring something up here in the next several weeks, I want you to consider expanding Medicaid. I mean, I know our state is struggling financially, but this is not something that you can kick down the street. People don't decide when they need health care. Okay, they don't decide when they need health care. If you can tell me how to afford health care on $10,000 or $15,000 a year, because we ain't all going to be making a whole lot. I make really good money. I'm very lucky. We're lucky that we can help out our sister-in-law. Think to yourself, how could you possibly afford it? And then how can you look at those people in the eye and say, we're not expanding Medicaid. We talked about raising property taxes. We talked about different ways that we could settle this. I will pay more property taxes. I pay like $1,200 a year on over 3,000 square feet. Up in Chicago, my cousin pays $6,000 for 3,000 square feet. Come on. Let's do something about this and take care of the poor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Ms. Martin, that is the last one tonight. I apologize. You're one of about 20 that are not going to get to speak. I would encourage y'all to reach out to your individual legislators that are here that represent your district to pass on your information to them to take it to Montgomery for you. We thank you for coming out tonight. It's a great crowd, and thank you very much.